Okay. HaMitzvah HaTesha v'Chamishim, 59. He shizhimu mishkoyach or milishkoyach, to forget. Masha osalonu zera Amolek, or Amolek the basic Kisviyad, vigdimom lahazik lonu, and they were the first, or vigdimom, to mazik, to hurt us. There are other translations of that in Ibn Eov, hischilum l'ra, and the vashe kodmanuhu b'ra. Now, this becomes interesting as we proceed. Okay, so you have to understand what the lav is. You shouldn't forget. Okay, so we'll see what that means. Okay, ukvar bialnu b'mitzvah teshu shmonim umei b'mitzvah say lizkor ma she'osalonu Amolek. And some it's also there, Zer Amolek. Ulchadesh sinosei mitzvah say. Chadesh sinos. So we'll see in Kufpei Tes soon. I like to just, the question is just how these two mitzvahs interrelate. V'chein, so l'chayr, the v'chein is going on the mitzvah say, is just that we're obligated to remember, or l'chadish sinosoi, mitzvah say, v'chein, anachnu muzהרין mehashlich ze mlibenu. Umishkoyach oisoi. So here, mehashlich ze mlibenu. So another translation is azivas ze or hasnochas inyan ze. Now, the various translations, the question is, what is the lav? What am I enjoined? What am I enjoined from doing here? So the main issue that you have to deal with is this a sheva altasa kubase? In other words, a person who doesn't do his intellectual push-ups, doesn't do his chazoras on Amolek, and happens to forget. Is that the Isa, or he's asked to try to forget? He's a kumbase. If you look at the various translations over here, they can give you clues, but you have conflicting clues here, because mehashlich ze milibenu is to throw it away. So I would assume you're doing something. That's Ibn Tibun, but in Ibn Eov, aziva ze l'choyer sheva atase as nochas in Yinze, I would assume also it's a sheva atase. Let's go back to Kufpei Tes, and I think just going over the mitzvah will give us some ideas here about this issue. A mitzvah Kufpei Tesha Mushmonim Umeya Hatziva Shistavinu Lizko Esa She'osa Lono Amolek Shekodem Oisonu B'ra. שקודם ויצונו ברע, ושנאמר זה בכל זמן וזמן. Something verbal. And it's not particular any time, it's all times or more. I don't know exactly all zman or zman. It's a very odd thing, okay? Somehow you have, let's say, speeches and sermons to rally the forces, to fight against. V'nikra es b'nei odom l'sonah, k'dei shelo yishtakach hadovo, v'loi techlash sinosoi v'timayet min an nefoshes b'meshech hazman. So the purpose of the assay is you shouldn't forget. V'zeo omo yis'ale, zoches asher osa l'cho Amlek, Rosh Sifri zoches asher osa l'cho Amlek b'feh, lo sishkach b'lei, ploima. This is the important thing. Emod dvorim b'ficho, you say words in your mouth, hagom lebnei odom shalitosu sinosei min alavovis. So you get the impression the assay is a machshir that you won't violate the law. If you take that approach, then it's a double portion that the lav is b'sheva altasa. In other words, you have to remind yourself, whatever it is, in order not to forget. So here is a new type of relationship between an asay and a lois aseh, that the asay is coming to help you that you shouldn't violate the lav. And the interesting thing, if you have an assay whose purpose is to make sure you don't violate the law, you don't look at it in terms of Shiur's Yud and that it's Akdoma, because Akdomas are part of a mitzvah assay. So the parts that lead up to the mitzvah, they're not in the minyan mitzvahs. But here, if you have an assay, which is a prelude to a lav in order to help you not violate the lav, that's not an issue of Shiur's Yud. Well, that's because it works with Sherish Vav. If you recall that assay and loisas are cholok, that even if the assay and loisas are the same, you still count them. So once it's an assay and a loisas, so the issue of akdomo is irrelevant. It's a very interesting thing. But l'cheira, I think that's what he says. Kidei shelo yishtakach hadovo v'lo teloche techolesh sinosoi u'semayet min hanefoshes b'meshech hazman. Because if you don't reinforce it, it's to be forgotten. V'zeo amor yis'al zoches asher osa l'cho Amlek v'loshen sifri zocho eis asher osa l'cho Amlek b'peh lo tishocha b'lev kloimar emod dvorim b'ficho hagormim lebnei odom shleitoso sinoso min alavovos. So there are two interesting things. You can actually have an assay, which ki'ilu is a hechsher, you shouldn't be over the lav, and you don't look at it as akdomo, that the assay is counted and the lois sekel. You'd also assume the same in Mishnah Torah. Lo sishkach bolev, she'oso lishkoyach evoso v'sinosei. It's just, you shouldn't forget it. so we shouldn't forget it. So in the verb itself in the lav doesn't require any kumbase. You shouldn't forget. Now, that's point number one. Point number two, if we look at the end of Kuf Pei Tes, let's look at it again. I read the beginning so far. V'loshen sifro, zochet she'asal chamolik, yochel b'levavcho, she'oim eloi sishkach, hari shikach alei v'amur. B'ani mekayim, she'tei shoyne b'fichu. You should say it verbally. Haloi tireh. Now, this is a very important sentence. The end of Kuf Pei Tes. Is this sentence, is it a new thought? Are we talking about something else? Now listen to this. Haloi tireh, heich osa Shmuel hanovi, kashebo l'kayim mitzvah. Mitzvah means the mitzvah of zoches asher osa l'cho Amolek. Asher osa l'onu Amolek, right? Hu zocha tchila, v'achar kach tziva l'holga. And then he commanded them to war with them, l'holga. V'hu amroi hokarti es asher osa Amolek liYisrael asher som loi baderech ba'loi simi Mitzrayim. So, and let's go back to what he said before. Une'ere es hanefoshes dvorim elochim boy, v'nikra es b'nei adam l'sana. So, there are two things going on over here, and it's very important to understand it. When you want to remember something and not to forget it, l'cheira, all that's necessary is that I verbally talk about it and remind myself, and I don't forget it. But where there's a new element over here, like rabble-rousing, excuse the expression, that I go to other people to get them excited. And that he says, and then he says, so a priori, I would have said that the two parts of this mitzvah, there's one mitzvah which is a general to mitzvah of my personal remembrance, in order that I shouldn't forget. And then there's another part, there's the rabble-rousing before the war, that ki'ilu, they should be excited about going to war against them. And this is not to me personally, this is I should speak to others to get them excited. So I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that this has nothing to do with the lav. And in fact, the Ram doesn't mention this aspect over here. So there's one part of the lav, there's one part of the assay, which is helping us. It's not a preface to the lav. It's helping us that we don't violate the lav. And there's another part that is a preface to the mitzvah of Milchama. And I would have said that the second part, the preface to Milchama, doesn't do with this lav. The lav is lav of shikha. Now, however, that clearly is that I say at the end. So the Ram B'chayra then in Kuf Pei Tes is having two proofs, proving two different issues. One is part of the mitzvah is that you shouldn't forget. And that's what he says. The mitzvah say to Lisko, Kloima, emod dvom beficho, agomim, livnei odom, shalei tosu sinosim in alavavais. That is there, and that's our mitzvah over here. And then he has another part, which is a prelude to the mitzvah of Mechis Amalek. Aloitire, heich oso Shmuel Hanovi kasher bo lekayim mitzvah zu, shehu zochar tchila ve'achkach tzivu lahogam, nuchama. V'amrei pokari asher oso Amalek v'Yisrael asher som lo b'derech v'alois mitzvah. So this, a priori, is very nice, very simple, and it's all okay. Now, I have a problem over here, and I'm not sure how to read the first part of Kuf Peites. And let's read it together. HaMitzvah Atesha Ushmonim Umeya Hatzivush Nitztavinu Lisko Eis Asher Oso Lono Amalek Shekodem Oisona Borah Ushenoima Ezeh B'chol Zman Uzman. I verbally speak to myself, and when I speak about it to myself, I won't forget. Okay? Une'erer es hanefoshes b'dvorim lilachim boy. So l'cheira, he's talking about the second part, right? The two parts. And at the end, he brings the raya from Shmuel to that part. Une'erer es hanefoshes b'dvorim lilachim boy. This is not me to myself. This is me to others, the rabble-rousing speech, excuse me. Okay? Then he says something which I'm not sure how to classify it. He says, "V'nikra es b'nei adam l'sanoi." So this is also part of it. I'm getting you excited to, and part of it, enhancing it, is the more that they hate them. Nikra es b'nei adam. It's not me to myself. I'm speaking to others. So you understand, it's not Pasha reading the Pasha in the Torah, we pointed out then. But there are two parts. They're both verbal, and there's no set text. One is I mind myself, and the other is I get others involved in the sinner in order that they should be mekayim the mitzvah mechis amol. So this is all beautiful, but I don't understand the next sentence in the Rambam. Okay, so let me just read it again. Okay. Today, shelo yishtaka chadovo v'lo techolesh sinosoi to my menafoshes meshach hazman. So, what does that to do? He doesn't quote it over here. By us, correct? And why to getting rabble-rousing, get other people involved? That's shochi takach. So I have a suggestion, and maybe maybe I missed it. I would suggest that the Rambam, the Kidei, is two parts. There's the first part, she lisko es asher osa Amalek shekodem lanu v'ra shenoimes kolash ezeh b'chol zman uzman. This is kidei shelo teishtakach hadovo. Okay. Then he says v'lo techolesh sinosu tmayit min on the forces mesach hazman. This maybe is going on others, but it's meshach hazman. So the whole discussion is about forgetting. So how can he have you see, he should have done it the following. He should have written it. Shenoime es bechol zman es shekodem moisona bara zocha es asher osel on Amalek shekodem lona beisa or beisa bara moisona bara. Then today I would have said today loire today shelo tishtak chadovo v'lo ticholesh tinosei v'semayim min nafoshes b'meshach hazman. Then I was said then unaire as on the portion but volim lilachim boy when Nikla as b'nei adam misonai. Okay, but he doesn't do that. So you get the whole both of them are shaloi tishtakach. So that's very odd. What is calling them to war have to do with shaloi tishtakach? I'm not sure how to read this, but I just wanted you to be aware of the problem. Okay. So that's what we have. And frankly, I'm not sure what 100% what to do with this, but it's pretty clear that there's a problem over here. And the Ram over here doesn't mention anything about the other type of remembering. So that's also, I think, is very nice. It's just that the Kuf Pei test is a little difficult to read. Okay. Let's continue. Now, here, you see, there's something added here, which I'm a little bit confused about. Let me just see over here again. I'll show you what I mean. Look at Nun Tes. He says, Zer Amolek v'asher kodmu b'ra'a kvar b'yanu mitzvasei v'mitzvas ta'tesha u'shmonim u'meya mitzvasei shezchiras ma she'osu lanu Zer Amolek b'chidush ho'evo hu mitzvas asei. So there's something new over here that not only do I have to remember in the mitzvah say in Kuf Pei Tes, but I have to rekindle the hatred. That's what he says. V'chidush or l'chadesh or v'chadesh or l'chadesh sinasa. It's not lisko mash. I would have stopped over here. Lisko mash osalon Amalek. Or l'chadesh, you have to push it to have be mechadesh, and this is only as far as yourself is concerned. So I guess if you don't rekindle the assumption is if you don't rekindle the hate, you'll forget it. So this nuance in Kuf Pei Tes that you have to be mechadish in the Schiras Amalek is certainly new. And reading, the problem is reading Kuf Pei Tes. I don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something. Hatzivish Tzavino Lisko Esa She'osa Lono Amalek Shekodem Lono Oisona Berah Ushenoimar Ezeh B'chol Zman Uzman Unois Nefoshes B'dvorim Lilochim Boy. Oh, that's something else. That's that's getting involved in others involved in a war effort. This is referring to the second thing, to the war effort, or that's this, and it's referring to others. So I'm not sure what this is. Simply, I would have interpreted that he learns that if you're not mechadesh, you'll forget, which is nice and beautiful. But the problem is that it's odd that the Ram should say a nuance in the mitzvah say, which is not at all. So, and not say the mitzvah say, but say it in the lois haseh. That I'm confused about now. I'll leave that to you, but I think it's something to think about. Also, just one more thing. Yeah, let's go back to this here. Just for one more point, and we'll move on doing that. Yeah. So like this. Yeah. He says, V'chein gam haznochas inyan zeh u'shchichosoi muzhorין olav. So what are the two things? Not dealing with it and forgetting. What are the two things? Haznochas inyan zeh. Or here it says, Mehashlich zeh milibenu, or me'azivas inyan zeh, or mishkoyach oisoi. Are there two things? The first thing is we're enjoined not to be mevatel yaseh, and that itself is allowed. Mehashlich zeh milibenu, that what, or the azivas inyan zeh of lisko masha osel ramolek lechadish sinosai, and umishkoyach oisai, and there's a separate thing of forgetting. Are there two things here? This is also, I think, very important. So I have nothing to say, but I think all these points are interesting. Okay, onwards. It is what it is. Next. Here, now this is gonna take a little while, I think, but we'll get started now, Blina. HaMitzvah v'HaMitzvah hamashlim shishim. Mitzvah number 60. Loisa said, He she'isanu min the Hashem agodol. From the Lashon, v'noikev Shem Hashem, Hashem Hashem, noise Shem Hashem, mos yumos. He she'isanu min the cave, milokuv. Shem Hashem. Shem. Oh. So here it says Shem HaGodol. So it means Shem HaGodol is Shem Yuchot. Right? We call him Shem HaGodol. The Lav is the Shem HaGodol, which is very odd because the Ram says later, Ubesifro, you read a little bit down, Amru, Es Hashem HaMiyuchot B'Misa, V'al Shah Kinuyim B'Azhara. So the Azhara is by everything. Les maybe is interested in the whole continuum, which he's talking about the Oynish, and the Oynish is only by of Misa is only by Shem HaGodol. That has to be understood a little bit. He she's Hanu Minekayim Hashem HaGodol. Yis'ale. So the Yis'ale l'chot should be kama. Yis'ale mimashi yoimu akayf masich l'milu rav. He's much greater and much more just infinite and beyond all. I assume the opposite of what the Koflim or the Sichlim assume. Ilui Rab. Okay. I'm not sure what this means, Zedin, to say that how mistaken they are or what it is. I'm not sure what he wants to say. It's not this needs, so what's the point? Why should he say this? What does it do with the mitzvah? V'zehu ha'inyan she'echanu oisai b'birkas Hashem. Chazal call it a kinui because birkas Hashem really means the opposite. It's a euphemism. Okay, b'seidah. Birkas Hashem in euphemistic sense. Okay, that's the kinui. Birkas Hashem Yis'ale. Ha'oinish le'ever al lav zeh hine hu mavur b'teira. So the word mavur the word mavur, what he means is mafurish, or it could be mafurish according to other translations. It means that the chiyuv misa, the skila, is mafurish bakra, and the ashara is not mafurish. So it's really to contrast skila to the lav. V'amo yis'ale, and what v'amo yis'ale. Omnam ha'inish li'oiva alav zeh hine mavur b'teira she'isaka v'amrei, and that is, what is it? It is mafurish v'amrei yis'ale v'noikev shem Hashem mos yumos rogom yugamu boy kol ha'eda v'ulam or ashara. The lav hine leibal bakosu ashara miyuchedes bezeh ha'avoy levadoi. So levadoi means it's not by itself. The lav is other things. Avo bo'o ashara koileles or inyan azeh v'zulasoi. It's this inyan and a different inyan. V'amo yis'ale elokim loy sekalel. Okay, so it's mefurish netera that in Neikev it says rogam yugamu most rogam yugamu boy kol eda, so it's skila. But the lav a priori you would interpret it refers to kill this dying. So how do we know they kill us? Birkas Hashem. So that will be explained, but it's not mafurish. So he says the Ram doesn't say anything at the moment now. He just says that it's not only on Birkas Hashem, it's on other things also, which I assume he means kill is dying. We'll see. Okay. Veloshin Mechilta. Veloshin Mechilta. Lefi Shoimer V'noikev Shem Hashem Mos Yumos Oine Shomanu Ashora Loi Shomanu Talmaloima Elokim Loisakal. So the chod it means is that Ein Oinshim Masirim. So since we know the Einish, so where is the Ashora? It's Elokim Loisakal. So you know from this medrash that Elokim Loisakal refers to the Rebbeinu Shalom of Birkat Hashem. Okay, the Seder. Here, this is not so clear. And this requires a little thought, okay? The see, there's something not fair. From what the Ram quotes over here, everything's fine. But this whole approach is only according to Rabbi Akiva. But if you read it's not according to Akiva the way he reads it over here. Okay, Beseda. But what happens is that Pashtus is in the Medrash and the Sefer. It's in the Mechilta. Rabbi Akiva says that it's referring to Birkas Hashem and only Birkas Hashem. And Rabbi Yishmael says it's referring to Killas dying and only Killas dying. Let me read it to you. Mechilta Rabbi Yishmael. Elokim lo yisakalel lo manema lefi shoim v'neikim shem Hashem mos yumos. Leini shomanu ashol lo shomanu v'kach nema elokim lo yisakalel. Mikol mokoim. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. So what's it referring to? It's referring to Birkas Hashem. Comes Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael b'dayonim akosim b'daber. So it means according to Rabbi Akiva, it's not. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it's only Birkas Hashem. And according to Rabbi Yishmael, it's only Killas dying. Shenema ad Elokim yovod vashneim, and the Elokim can refer to dying. And the emissaries, these 2 days in Mechilta are Gemara and Sanhedrin, some of Vavam and Aleph, the Sanya, Elokim Chil, Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, because it's referring to dying. Rabbi Akiva Omer Elokim Kodesh. So whether Elokim Loisakal is Chol or Kodesh depends upon Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. And the Rambam, very strange, is using both because the Maisi has a law of Elokim Loisakal for dying and Elokim Loisakal for the Birkas Hashem. Okay, next. It's a little very difficult. Ubesifra Emo Pashi Yudal Perek Yutes Aloha Hey Amru Al Hashem HaMiyuchad B'Misa V'Al Shah HaKnuyim B'Azhara. So if I say Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's klol on Yud Kei Vav Kei, so That's Chaim Misa. But a klala on Shem, if it's not the Shem, I'm a Farish or whatever, something like that. So you're not Chaim Misa, only a lav. So the truth is, first of all, there, in this Mechilta, excuse me, see, in the Sefer, the Sefer, there's a Machokas Tanoim. The Sefer goes like this. Kikilus Elokim, Ma Tamaloima, the Fishanem Lukim Shem, Hashem, Mos Yumos, Yochol, Ein Chayov, Misa, El Al Shem Miyuchot, Minayin Larabos, Kola Kinuyim, Tamaloima, Ki Yikalel Elokov, Divra Meis, according to me, it's everything. And according to the Chacham, Chomoimim, Hashem Miyuchot, B'Misa V'Ashar Kinuyim B'Azhol. So, the Chayot, it's Machutis Tanoim in the Sefer where the Chaim Misa Kinuyim or not. So, that's not of interest to us at all. Because that's what they did him. It's Mekayma is in Mishnah Torah. So the whole purpose over here is to assume that there is the real proof there's a lav, I guess. Just to bring a raya that Elokim Lo Yisakalel is the lav for Birkas Hashem, I assume. See, I just want to suggest something now. Not a suggestion, ask a question. See, if you assume that the ashor comes because we say ein oishen kemashirin, which we'll see later. The Ram clearly says that, but you see, boika, bavu heyois oika, lo yonesh gein his here, nechapis asazor behechach. What? So that's what we're working with. Ein oish gein his here. So since there's an oinish, and oinish in hizir, you recall, in the second part of Shurish Yudalid, that on any oinish misa or kores, misa's bezin or kores, we say there's certainly a lav. Okay. So then it's an interesting thing. We know that there's a lav for Neikev Shem, Hashem Mos Yumos, that the Shem HaMayuchad is Mechayiv a lav. But how do you know? How do you know that it's Hasholah for Kinuyim? Maybe since the whole Chidush, the lav, basically was said by Dayan. But the Mechadish, the lav also applies as a separate lav to Birkas Hashem because of the Chiyuv Misa. So Mehechetei say that there's a Ashora I think it's an interesting question. Maybe there's a separate ashara. I mean, there's an ashara for kinuyim. So I would have said the following. I think the question is interesting. So I would have said that there are two steps over here. You say ein oinchin, elin kin masirin. So then we say that Elokim leisekalil is by because Hashem. But once we apply it to Birkas Hashem, and it says Stam Elokim leisekalil, and Elokim is a kinui, so we look at the lav in its own right, and we say that Shakinuyim is Bashola. It's a very interesting thing. It's not that you say it, your whole interest is to create a lav. No, the whole interest, this will be important later or next time, the time after, that you recanning a pasuk that the Elokim Leisakalel also refers to the Moshe Shalom. And once you do that, and it says Elokim Leisakalel, so we know that that whole applies not only to Shema Miyuchot, but also to Kinuyim. That's what I would assume. Okay, now, next part of the sentence. This is only to get into it because we'll see how far we get. Okay. Next, then it says a mechilta. It's a mechilta b'shimei yochoi. Gam kein elokim loisakalel litein loisase al birkas Hashem. So all of this is to bring a loisase al birkas Hashem. Derech agav, we might learn about kinuyim basora. Okay. And l'chayra in the mechilta Rabbi Shmuel is working on Enushkin Masirin. The fish who even Menukim Shem Hashem Mos Yumos, Oine Shomanu, Ashora Loi Shomanu, Tamalaima. Elokim Loi Sakal. Okay, say it. So, okay. Next. Ukfa his boy mishpatei mitzvah zo b'shvi misanhedrin. So, for all intents and purposes, I would assume the Ram is basically finished and everything else is a postscript. And why do I say that? Because the Ram usually ends the mitzvah with the various ma'amakimis of where the Matik Yashmu explained the dinim of this mitzvah. So once you have that, so we're basically finished. And now, when you have over here, so for we're finished the mitzvah, now is a postscript. A postscript. V'da sheyois hamin hazeh min haschoros koilo shnei dvorim leishloisha. It comes out now that the hashora, this type of hashora, has two types of dvorim or two types of inyonim. It's the inyan of kilas dayon And because Hashem, koilel shnei dvorim or shleisha. Eino mimin lav shebeklolis. It's a very odd statement to make all. This is not. Eino mimin lav shebeklolis. Not a lav shebeklolis. And the Rambam explains why. Why is it not a lav shebeklolis? He says the following: B'shvil shakosu be'er ha'oinesh b'chol inyan ve'inyan. Because the Torah hakosu explicitly tells us an oinish on each inyan ve'inyan. V'yodanu be'echach shekol inyan mehem muzah mimenu u'shehu mitzlois aseh. So since there's an oinish on each inyan ve'inyan, see in general, lav shebeklolos, and there are basically two types of lav shebeklolos. In Shirish Chi, the Ram explains it. There's a lav where basically inyanim are not mentioned with Purush in the pasuk, but the Matiki Ashmur told you that there are many things subsumed under this lav, like loisercho adam, that loisercho adam adayim mizrok, or loisercho adam when Bezin Herges and Nefesh, loisercho adam before Tefillah, loisercho adam by Ben Sarumeira, that the Ben Sarumeira was violating loisercho adam by eating an achila, which will cause to be killed, to be chayiv. That's what it says. So there are many things in the pasuk and nothing mentioned explicitly. Okay, and it's only counted as one. There's another case of lav shebeklolos, and that is al teichel menu no ubashel mevushal amoyim. So there are two things included and explicitly mentioned in the pasuk: al teichel menu no and al teichel menu bashel mevushal amoyim. But even though the two things are mentioned explicitly, since there's only one lo or al, it's one mitzvah min mitzvahs. And the Ramban disagrees with this. The Ramban counts it as two. Whatever it is, there's two types of lav shebeklolos. But lav shebeklolos in chefsa is nimne as one, not more than one. And comes the Rambam and says, no. In certain instances, where the einish is mefurish b'kra, the lav can be counted as two instead of one. Let's read it, 2 or 3 instead of one. Let's read it again. V'da sheyois hamin hazeh min ashoros, this elokim loisakalel. See, this is all very odd because it's, you see, he should have, excuse me one second, maybe I'm missing something. He should have said this lav, because it's even before Mina Mitzvah he got to dying. He should have said this lav is about dying also. He doesn't say that, and he has he goes on the assumption that the reader knows that, but that's what's assumed. Okay, he hasn't mentioned dying. Okay, but he's assuming dying, and he says, "V'da sheyois hamin hazeh min ashoros klil shnei dvom." Oh, shloisha dvom. I don't know what shloisha. Why he talking about shloisha over here? It could be logically 3. Eino mimin lav shebeklolos b'shvil shakosem be'oinesh b'chol inyan ve'inyan mehem. Each one, v'yodana be'echach shkol inyan ve'inyan muzah mimenu. See here, basically, there's one thing mentioned in the pasuk, but there are two separate ancient for the things mentioned in the pasuk. So Mimela, we count it as two, even though there's only one lav. That's what he says. And that's the point, that Elokim Loisakalel is different than Loisecho Adam. And the reason is that Oynish Nifra we call each one. But however, this is before, we'll explain this about. However, if Lu Yitzur, you would have had only one Oynish, even though the Oynish is not on the other issues which allow my asa, then you count it as one. And the prime example of that is Lo Yichsel Adam, because we have an Oynish in Ben Ser Meir Ravachiv Misa, and there's no ancient for Leisercha Adam V'Dayim Mizrach, Mizrach, Leisercha Shebezin Horges HaNefesh, or whatever other things you want. So therefore, the lav of Ben Ser Meir is only counted as once a million mitzvahs, 1 million mitzvahs. And that is Loisase Kuf Sadi Hey. Here, certainly the definition of lav shebeklos, he does the same thing in Shoresh Chi Ubeiro Gamkein. He lav shebeklos who di also trei plus isure mechad lav 2 or 3 isur. Ve'roi shimne kol isa ve'isa she kol alayim ze halav mitzvah b'fnei atzmo avo yimone halav levadei. That's what he says in Shoresh Chi. One of the things we're going to have to think about, and I'll leave this, I guess, for next time. Really, is I'm a simpleton, okay, but I know the oynish of Birkas Hashem is befurish netera. Of course, the oynish of kill is dying. I didn't find it. If you find it, let me know in the Matiki Ashmur that is Malchus. Well, let's assume the Matiki Ashmur said there's Malchus. The Rambam does say that there's Malchus. Okay, there's Malchus. Okay, but the Malchus is not. What does he mean over here? Bishvil shakosu beye ha'oinish. The kosuv over here doesn't say anything. I'm not sure what the Rambam wants and where he gets this from. Amir Hashem will pick up next time from Vada, but get yourself into it. There's a very interesting discussion here in Rambam, and Amir Hashem will pick it up next week.